Hello guys. So today we are going to start with the time and labor uh, module. So this one is a kind of walkthrough session. Uh, so in this session I'll explain that how the time and labor processing is done, i.e. the process flow for time and labor administration, and then after that I will also discuss about the setup, that how do we set up time and labor, what is the I'll not go in detail in this session. I'll just show what is the what are the steps that we follow in the setup, okay, which element is set up first and which element is set up later, okay. So that entire overview or entire architecture of time and labor setup will be shown in the second part of this video. So let's first begin with the let's first get to know what is time and labor, okay. Well, like other applications in PeopleSoft HCM ERP suite, time and labor is also an application. It's a product, okay, which is used to facilitate the time management in any organization, okay. So when I say time management, what is time here? It's nothing but when we work in a organization, we have to report the time for which we have worked, right? So every organization has a policy to for employees, that employees have to work minimum of n number of hours in a week or on daily basis or in a month. It can be any time period, but the number of hours that the employees have to work is defined by the organization, okay. So for example, in many IT companies, the number of hours that employees have to work is 40 hours in a week, okay, Monday to Friday. If you talk about some manufacturing companies, so that the employees can be of two types, hourly and salary, right? So hourly employees have to work n number of hours in a day. For example, they have to work 9 hours in a day, and they have to report their time on daily basis, that they have to work for that they have worked for 9 hours, okay. So their reporting is on daily basis, right? So similar to these two examples, there are numerous other examples. The working pattern also comes in play. Working pattern means whether employee is working from Monday to Friday or Sunday to Saturday to Thursday, or 3 days in a week. So it can be anything. Working pattern can be anything, and weekly offs can be any days. It's not always true that weekly offs are always Saturday and Sunday. They can be any. It depends on the organization. Anyway, so the point here is that every employee in a organization have to report the time that they have worked, okay. This is important for the organization because based on that only they will be paid, okay. So they are paid for the time they have worked, okay. So this entire thing, this entire time administration is a huge task, right? It's not simple, it's not easy, and for this PeopleSoft have come up with this time and labor, okay. So in time and labor there is everything, how the time, the reporting of time, approval of time, processing of time, and finally when it is sent to payroll for the payment, and then after that a distribution. So everything is there in PeopleSoft Time and Labor. Okay, so that's why we have this time and labor application or module. Okay, so now let's talk about the process flow in PeopleSoft Time and Labor. Okay, so before going into PeopleSoft specific theory, we should understand how in general the time is reported or approved or processed in any organization. How in general, not specific to PeopleSoft, but in general, let's say we are working in an organization, how the time is reported. Okay, so there can be multiple ways of reporting the time, right? There could be electronic forms where employees have to report their time that they have worked, whether on weekly basis or on monthly basis or on daily basis. In many organizations there are time clock, some devices that are kind of fixed on the entrance of the company, and every single employee have to swipe in while entering into the company for their daily work, and they have to swipe out when they leave the office, right? So the difference between the time is considered so this employee has worked for that duration. So the difference between swipe in and swipe out time is actually the time for which employee has worked, right? So in that case it is automatically reported, right? Employees just have to swipe in and swipe out. So it is automatically sent to the organization's respective department where the time is processed, or whether the time is actually administered to be sent to payroll, right? So in that case it is automatic, right? They just have to swipe in and swipe out properly. Okay, so that is another way. Okay, so there can be other ways. Directly, employee can telephone their respective department. If the number of employees are very less in the organization, then there can be a manual way of reporting the time, right? So this is how it is done in general. Okay, after the time is reported, right, it might go for approval, right? If the company policy says that the reported time should be sent for approval, then it will go for approval. Otherwise, it will go to the time administration team, who is responsible for processing the time, right? And like that. So this is how it is done in general. So if you first understand the time and administration or reporting of time, processing of time, approval of time in general, okay, don't stick yourself to PeopleSoft Time and Labor for now. So if you understand it in general, then you would easily understand the terms or the process flow or the setup in PeopleSoft. Okay, so I will try to first explain you a particular topic which is part of PeopleSoft Time and Labor in general. I'll not relate that to PeopleSoft. I'll first explain that in general how it could be there in any organization, and then I will try to match that with the PeopleSoft terminology. Okay, so this is how I'm gonna explain this whole thing. Okay, so by this way it will be easy for you to understand. But anyway, so this is the entire process flow of PeopleSoft Time and Labor. Okay, process flow means after the setup is done. Okay, so this is after setup. After the setup is done, how the time is reported. Setup means after the PeopleSoft Time and Labor is implemented. Okay, so I am talking about that stage. Okay, so there are how many major stages here? in the process flow. First is time reporting, as you can see here. The first stage is time reporting. Okay, this one is second one, reported time. So once the time reporting is done, so that is actually considered as the reported time, which could or could not go for approval. After this stage, the third stage is time administration. Okay, where that time is actually processed. And after this stage, once this happens, it generates the payable time, and then payable time is actually sent to payroll and to distribute and for distribution among the projects. Okay, so this is the whole thing. So there are how many stages? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 and 5. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. There are 5 stages here. Okay, so let's understand this first one. So the first one is time reporting. Okay, so just like I said, that time can be reported by any of those methods. Okay, so it can be reported through internet. When I say internet, it means there could be an electronic form. Okay, so now since we are talking in PeopleSoft time and labor terms, so I will explain these things specific to PeopleSoft. Okay, so in the context of PeopleSoft, so in PeopleSoft time and labor, it can be, the time can be reported in any of these 3 ways. First one is internet. Internet means employees can report their time from their self-service navigation. So there is a page called Timesheet, which is under self-service time reporting, report time, and then there is a page called Timesheet. So I'll show that to you in the PeopleSoft environment. Okay, so go to self-service, time reporting, report time, and this is the page from where it is reported. Okay, now, so under this type, okay, it can be reported using various other pages. Okay, so I'm talking about this option only, the first option. So under this option, under internet option, so there are various pages through which the time can be reported. So the first one is reporting time through so if you come to the first stage here, stage 1, time reporting. Okay, so I forgot to show this to you. Okay, so see, online, as I said, here it is written internet, but it is also online time reporting. Okay, so in this way, the time can be reported by any one of these pages, through any one of these pages. Okay, timesheet. Okay, so there is a timesheet page for employee, for managers. Okay, for this is a timesheet page for employee, ESS time reporting, report time, timesheet, and this is for managers. So employee report their time through this page, and manager can also report time on behalf of their direct reports using this page. Okay, there is another one, mass time. So this timesheet page is also under the manager self-service, and there is another one, mass time. Okay, mass time for employees and mass time for managers, similar to timesheet. Okay, so mass time page is used by employee to report time for a specific date range, not just for a particular period, a specific date range. So employees can use this page to report their time for a specific date range, and manager can also use this page, which is under MSS, for their direct reports to report the time for a specific date range. And the last one is rapid time. Okay, so rapid time is, so mass time is also here, see, under self-service and under manager self-service also. Okay, and there is a page for time admins, for administrator, called rapid time. Go to report time and rapid time. Okay, So this page is actually used by administrator to quickly report time for a group of employee. Okay, so it doesn't have the validations to be performed while time reporting. It's just that time admins or administrator, they have to just enter they have to just first select the employees for which the time has to be reported, and then they have to enter the duration for which they want to report the time, total hours, submit. That's it. So this page can be used to quickly report the time, and the time will be validated afterwards. It is not validated while submitting it. Okay, so this is the difference. So now, so all these pages are used to report time online, which is this internet. Okay. So what is the second way? Time clock. So time clock is nothing but when the time is collected in the time clock devices, which means in many organizations, as I said in the beginning, that when employees, they have to swipe in and swipe out their badge. They have to swipe in their badge to record the in time, and they have to swipe out their badge to record the out time. So this setup is there in many organizations. Okay, and based on that, so whatever difference comes between swipe in and swipe out, that is actually the reported time. That is actually the time for which employee has worked. Now that time has to be reported, right? So now, since we are talking in PeopleSoft terms, so see, that time clock device is a third party tool. It's not PeopleSoft tool. Okay, so it is there, it is fixed in the entrance of the organizations. Okay, so they have to swipe in and swipe out, which means the time is clocked in and clocked out. So those are time clock devices, and they are third party tools. They are not PeopleSoft tools. Then how this time will be sent to PeopleSoft? So it is done through interfaces. So now that time clock device has collected the swipe in and swipe out time, and it will automatically calculate the duration for which employees work. Okay. Now that time for all the employees recorded in the time clock device will be sent to PeopleSoft Time and Labor through So time is then sent to PeopleSoft Time and Labor through interfaces. So all the employees, the calculated time for all the employees is kept in an interface file, and then it is sent to PeopleSoft Time and Labor, where there are some time collection codes which we define in PeopleSoft. So the time collection codes actually are used to capture such time. So this is the second way. Third way is, employees can, report their time via telephone, and then time administrator will have to clock in their time or enter their time into the rapid time page. So this is the third way. Okay, so employees will have to telephone, and then time admins will have to enter the time in time and labor through rapid time page. Okay, so these are all so these three are the ways through which the time is reported in PeopleSoft Time and Labor. Okay, and this is completely in line with the actual business scenarios. So I have told you a couple of scenarios, right, in the beginning, which can be in any organization, right, in general. So these are the possible cases in general in all the organizations. There could be other ways which will fall under this manual. So this is actually the manual way of reporting time by telephonic. Employees will call their time admins, and then finally the time will be entered. Okay, so these two are very common practices across the organizations where how the time is reported. Okay, and all of them are actually covered in PeopleSoft Time and Labor. Okay, the second one is reported time. Now, once the time is reported here, once the time is entered here, and when it is submitted, it is actually considered as a reported time. Okay. So the second stage is reported time. Okay. So once the time is submitted from there, okay, it will come in this table, TL RPTD time, and it will be there, and the status of reported time will be a particular value. Okay, so now there are two scenarios here. So if we have set up the approval process at this stage, which means if the reported time has to be approved, then this reported time will first go to this time will first go to approval, go for approval. Okay, and once when it is approved, then it will be considered as fully reported time, approved reported time. Okay, so if we have set up the approval process here, if we have not set up the approval process, then this time is actually the reported time, and it will be ready for the time and administration process to pick up. Okay, so now let's assume that we have set up the approval process here. So once this time is submitted by all these ways, it will be considered as unapproved reported time, and it will be in this table, TL RPTD underscore time, and this reported time status will be approval needed, you know. So if the approval process is set up, there can be three cases. Okay, manager approves the time, manager or whosoever is the authorized person, manager approves the time. Okay, in that case, if the time is in that case the time will be ready for the time admin process to be picked up. So if manager approves the time, it will be approved reported time. Okay, second is manager pushes it back. So if the time is pushed back, which means there is some problem with the time entered by the employer or reported by time clock devices. Okay, so there is some problem in the time. Okay, so it has to be again modified and submitted back again, so that manager can again approve it. But so that is the second scenario. So when manager pushes it back, okay, so it will again follow the same flow. It will go back to employees, they will have to modify it and submit back again. So it will be again pending for approval. Third case is manager denies the time. Okay, so if manager denies the time, it means that he is not accepting the time that employee has reported. Okay, so it denies it. So for employee, it is done. Employee cannot take any action on the time which has been denied by their manager. So if later on manager realizes that he has denied it unintentionally, then manager themselves have to go to the timesheet page under MSS and open the time for that corresponding employee for which they have denied it, and they have to submit back again. Okay, so they have to themselves submit the time. Employees cannot take any action on denied time. Okay, so this is how it is. So let's say any of these three actions or let's say approval action is performed here by a manager, time is approved. Okay, so once the time is approved, it will still reside in the table TL underscore RPTD underscore time. Okay, and the status of reported time will be approved. Okay, alright, so this is how it is. So this is the second stage. What is the third stage? Once the reported time is approved, if the approval process is set up, it is ready for the administration process to pick it up. So now the third stage is time administration, where, and sorry, I didn't show you how the time reported time is approved and where it can be seen. So I didn't show you that in the page. Okay, sorry, I'll just again stick to this stage and we'll show you a couple of things before I go to the next stage. So here under time and labor, you see so if manager has to approve the time, so they will go to manager self-service, time management, approve time and exceptions, and they will go to this component for approving the reported time. Okay, so this is how it is approved. So they can take any of those three actions. And why they have to go to this reported time page? Because the time is still in the stage of reported time. Okay, it's not yet processed. It is still the reported time. So that's why they have to go to reported time, because they are going to approve the reported time. So this is from where it is approved. Okay. Now, once this is done, this is the third stage, time and administration. Okay. So once the reported time is approved, so we will process this time. And how do we process it? So third stage is processing the time, which is also called time administration. Okay, so we go to time and labor, process time, request time administration. So this is the run time and administration run control page, where we have to select few attributes. We have to provide few attributes, and then we have to run the process. And then the time administration process, which is an application engine, will pick up the approved reported time and process it. Okay, so basically what time administration process does, this is what it does. Okay, it picks up the approved reported time from this table and does all these things. Okay, so these three are the steps that it performs. Let me just show that to you in a better way. Okay, so on a very high level, this is what time admin process does. Okay, so it collects all the eligible employees based on the group ID supplied in the control page. So basically in run control page, we supply a group ID which contains all the eligible employees for processing their time. Okay, so first it picks up all the eligible employees based on the group ID that we provide in the run control page. It then picks up the reported time for all those employees which it has already picked up, okay, from the table. So it then gets their reported time, approved reported time, and then it processes that time applying some set of rules that we define, okay, that we'll explain later. So when it picks up the approved reported time from this table, it processes it using some rules, okay, time admin rules, and when that is done, it generates the payable time which is stored in this table. So payable time, when the time admin process is run and it processes the reported time, it generates the payable time. So what is the outcome of time admin process? The payable time. Okay, so at this stage the reported time is processed and it generates the payable time which is stored in this table, TL payable time. It just like TL reported time, there is another table, TL payable time, which contains the payable time. Now similar to this stage, if we have set up the approval process, so now we are done with the three stages, right? Now this is the fourth stage. Now if we have set up the approval process for payable time also, which means that we want that the payable time also has to be approved, then what? So yeah, it has to be approved. If we have set up the payable time to be approved, then it must go for the approval to the N+2 or whosoever is the authorized person. Okay, so at that stage, that person will approve or deny or push it back. Okay, so okay, so now before I go further on payable time, I would like to first explain what is the difference between reported time and payable time. After all, an employee have just reported that time, and then why we need to process it? they have reported it and it should be directly sent to payroll, right? After all the approvals. Then why do we need to process this reported time and generate the payable time? Okay. So this is important to understand the difference between reported time and payable time. So let's say that employee employee is working overtime in any particular day in a week. Okay. Now the company policy says that all the overtime should be reported in a separate reporting code. It should not be reported as regular time. It should be reported as overtime. Okay. But by mistake, employee just reported it as part of their regular time. So let's say that they worked actually 43 hours in a week, whereas they are supposed to work 40 hours. So they have worked 3 hours in excess, right? Now that 3 hours should be reported in a separate code. Okay, but employee forgot to do that. They just reported that whole time as part of their regular hours. Now who will be then who will correct this? Okay, let's say the approving manager also, when the reported time is sent for approval, the approving manager also forgot to do that. And let's say there is no approval process for reported time. Let's say that there is no approval process for reported time. Then who will be there to actually monitor it? Nobody. So that's when this time administration process comes in picture. And similar to that, there can be many other cases, right? For example, let's say employee was on a paid leave for a particular day, okay, and when he was reporting time, he forgot to remember that he was on a paid leave, and he actually reported time for that day as well, where he should not have, because he was on paid leave and he didn't work for that day, but he by mistake he reported still reported 40 hours for that week. Okay, so when he was trying to submit the time, there was no error, and since there is no approval process in reported time that we are assuming actually, then who will be there to monitor that? Who will be there to correct that, right? So that should not happen. So to correct and validate all these things, we have the time administration process. I've just told you two scenarios where where the mistakes can happen, right? I've told you two scenarios, two examples. But there can be countless other examples, scenarios where this can happen, and every such thing should be corrected, right? Every such thing should be validated. And for validation, we create rules. Okay, time admin process doesn't have validation. We don't create validation in time admin process. It's just an application engine which validates the time based on the rules that we create. So we first have to create those rules separately. So there are separate navigations for creating validation rules. Okay, and that we configure with the application engine definition of time admin. Okay, time admin is an application engine, so we configure those rules with the application engine, and when we run the time administration process, it uses those rules to validate this whole time. Okay, and corrects all these errors which I've just highlighted. So I've added only two examples. There can be countless other. So it validates all the entire reported time and correct all those errors which have been committed by employees or the managers. Okay. So when all that is done, the result of this time admin process is the payable time. So it generates the payable time, and as I said, if the approval process is set up, it will go for approval. If not, then it will directly it is ready for the payroll process to pick up. Okay, but let's say there is approval process set up, then any of these three things can happen, right? Just like in case of reported time, these three steps could be taken by the approving authority or the N+2. It is approved, it is pushed back, or it is denied. If it is approved, well and good. Okay, it will be approved payable time. So as I said, the payable time is stored in this table, and until and unless it is approved, it stays in the status of unapproved status. But when it is approved, it will reside on the same table, but it will be in the approved status. Okay, so the second possibility is the approving authority or the N+2 push it back. So when it push it back, it will be sent to employee and manager or whosoever was the originator of that. So when pushed back, employee or manager have to correct it and submit it back again. Then it will have to follow the same flow. Okay. When it is pushed back here, it will directly go to employee and manager. They will have to correct it and submit back again. When manager submits it back again, then it will go to, then that will be treated as reported time, which is submitted again, and it will go to N+2 for approval. Okay. In that case, since manager is submitting, so only N+2 can approve the reported time. So in that case, N+2 will approve it, and then time management process will pick it, and then it will be processed and generated payable time. Okay. And once the payable time is generated, then again N+2 will approve it. But in case if employee is submitting it, then it will again go for approval to their direct reporting managers, and it will again follow the same process here. Okay. The third possibility is denied. So in case it is denied, it will be up to managers to submit it back again, just like reported time, and then it will follow the same process. Okay. So if the time is denied by N+2, so either N+2 can submit it, sorry, N+2 cannot submit, N+1 will have to submit it separately for that employee, and it will be again go for approval to N+2, and that will be reported time. So once the N+2 approves the reported time, it will go to time management process for processing, and once the time management process picks it and process it, it will be then sent to N+2 again for approving the payable time. Okay. So this is how it is in case of denial. Okay, so this thing is written here. So now this is the fourth stage, when the payable time is generated and approved. After the payable time is approved, it is the final stage. It is ready for the it is ready to be sent to payroll. Okay. So when the payroll process is run, this time is picked up automatically. So the payroll process, whether we are using GP or NA payroll, they pick up this time from this table, and they process it and pay the employee based on that. And at the same time, the distribution also happens, because distribution means that, let's say, employee is working in multiple projects at the same time, and he has reported time for all those multiple projects, right? So let's say in a week he is working on 2 different projects for which the code is different, right? So, but they will be submitting using the same page. They submitted the time worked on 2 different projects using the same timesheet page. It is submitted, it is approved by their manager, and then it is processed by time management process, and then it is again then the time management process generates the payable time for that. And when the payable time is approved, it is processed by payroll, and at the same time the distribution has to happen, right? Now, since employee has worked on 2 different projects, so the cost on those, so the cost should be borne by those 2 different projects. So it will be distributed to those 2 projects, right, among those 2 projects, because employee is working on those two projects, so the time also has to be distributed on those 2 projects. So this is where it happens. It is distributed among the projects. Okay, so this is how it is done. So this is the final stage. So all these stages we have just gone through. I hope you understood each and every stage here. Okay. So in the next part of this session, we will understand the setup process. We have just gone through the processing flow. Now we'll understand the setup. Okay. But before that, we'll quickly see one more thing. Actually, I wanted to show you how the GP and absence module and how the time and labor they are integrated. But I'll explain that when I explain the setup, because to understand this mapping between the time and labor reporting codes and the GP and absence earning codes, we need to understand first the time reporting codes and all. So So the first part of this session is done. We have gone through the process flow. Now we will understand this setup. Okay. So let's now discuss this setup. Let me take you to another diagram. So here you can see all the elements involved in the setup of time and labor module. This diagram clearly depicts which element is actually related to which element. I mean, in other words, to define a particular element, what other elements we need to define first. So this actually clearly shows the relationship between various elements here, which are used to define, or which are used to set up time and labor module. Okay, so so let's now just go through it. So like any other module, we first have to set up time and labor so that we can use it. Okay, and we need to set up time and labor based on the business requirement. Okay, we have to create all these elements considering the business requirements that we would have to first gather from the stakeholders, and then based on that only we have to create these elements. Okay, their attributes and other things, along with the time and labor rules that we discussed about. All those things has to be created based on the business requirement. Okay, so okay, so let's first talk about holiday schedule. Okay, well, holiday schedule is defined in core HR. Okay, so if you, why do we define holiday schedule here? What is the use of holiday schedule in time and labor? So if you think about time entry in general, okay, forget about PeopleSoft. So system must know how many public holidays are there in a particular time period or in an entire year. Okay, and that's what we store in the holiday schedule definition in PeopleSoft. And why system must know that how many holidays are there in a particular period or year? Because let's say in a week there are 2 public holidays falling in. Okay, and of course employee will not be coming during the holiday, right? They will not be working, so they don't have to report time for those public holidays. So if system doesn't know that the 2 days were the public holiday, and if employee don't report time for that, then system will deduct the corresponding amount from employee's paycheck, right? If system doesn't know that those 2 days were actually the holiday where employee didn't have to work. But if system knows that, yeah, so those 2 days were holidays in that particular time period, then it will automatically not consider those 2 days. Okay, it will automatically take 8 hours for employees on those 2 days, or whatever it does. Just forget about, don't worry about that for now. So system must know that how many days of public holidays are there in a calendar period, or in an entire calendar or year or time period, so that at the time of time reporting there is no issue. Okay, so that's why we define holiday schedule in PeopleSoft. So holiday schedule is a repository where we store all the public holidays in a year. Okay, and holiday schedule is defined in core HR. If you know the core HR setup, go to setup HCM. Okay, and go to foundation tables, organization, and there is something called holiday schedule here. So here you define the holiday schedule. It is already covered in core HR. Okay, all right. Now the schedule group. So the first thing is over. So I am already having a document here. Okay, so it is written, the same thing is written here. Okay, Now the second one is work schedules or schedule groups. Okay. So work schedule represents the working pattern of employees. For example, the working pattern of employees could be any of these three, right? One could be employees working Monday to Friday, 8 hours each day and 40 hours in a week, with Saturday and Sunday weekly offs, right? This is a very common working pattern in most of the organizations. Another could be Monday to Wednesday, 8 hours each day, Thursday to Friday. So Monday to Wednesday 8 hours and Thursday to Friday 10 hours. It's a mixed work schedule, okay? So from Monday to Wednesday employee have to work 8 hours, and from Thursday to Friday they have to work 10 hours with Saturday and Sunday weekly off. So it brings total like 44 hours of work in a week, right? Another could be, the third one could be Tuesday to Saturday 4 hours each day with Sunday and Monday weekly offs. So in the last one, Sunday and Monday are the weekly offs and the working days are Tuesday to Saturday, 4 hours each day. So there can be countless working patterns in organizations, okay, depending upon nature of business that they do, okay. So this must be defined in the system, because based on this only employees will report their time. So those employees who are falling in this category, they will report 4 hours from Tuesday to Saturday, right? And they will not report, and they will keep 0 for, or they will not enter anything for Monday and Sunday because they are weekly offs. So employees reporting time only based on their working schedule. They cannot report 8 hours from Monday to Friday if they're falling in third category, right? Because it will be mismatch, and system, you can define rules for the system to throw errors, right? Similarly, employees falling in second category cannot report working pattern like this, right? Or time like this. So based on the work schedule only, employees will have to report their time as and when they have to, okay? They cannot go against their working schedule. They have to report time based on their working schedule, okay? So this is why we have working schedule. This is why we need working schedule in time and labor. It is very important. And several similar type of work schedules, they are grouped together to form a schedule group, which is directly linked to work group. We will come to that later. And work schedule is defined, but before defining work schedule we have to define shift and work days, okay? So these are the very basic elements that we have to, individual elements that will be defined, shift and work days, using which we can define work schedule, and then after that similar work schedules can be grouped together to form a schedule group. That's it, okay? Now this work schedule can be defined either in time and labor module, or it can be defined in global payroll module, okay? So irrespective of whether we define, it's one and all same, okay? So if you define a work schedule in GP, then it can be used in time and labor, okay? Because ultimately the tables are same, only the components are at different places. Even the components are same, they are just accessed from different places, okay? So you can define work schedule either from setup HRMS, product related GP and absence schedules. We can define shifts, workday, and then work schedules either from GP, or you can define from product related time and labor module, okay? So here you have schedule, configuration, shift, workday, and schedule. So it's same, okay? So I've already explained what is the use of work schedule. The next one is time period, okay? Time period is actually, it contains the date range for which employee will report their time, okay? For example, it can be weekly, it can be daily, it can be bi-weekly, it can be monthly, right? It all depends on the company policy. Okay, so mostly the hourly employees report their time on daily basis. So for them the time period is daily. Salaried employees can report their time on weekly or bi-weekly basis or monthly basis. So any of those three periods can be for them. So time period basically is for that, and it is defined from here under setup HRMS product related, time and labor, time periods, and you can define different type of time periods from here: daily, weekly, monthly, complex, repeating. Okay, and after defining time period, okay, you have to build it. Okay, so let's say for example you defined it here. You defined a time period called weekly, which is delivered, actually it is PS week. It is a weekly time period, and in time period you have to also mention the start date of that period. Okay, so that it knows from where to start and from where to end in that period. Now after defining it, you have to build this period so that it creates the calendar for this period for entire year or 2 years or 3 years, because it just a kind of definition for time period. The actual time period is not created at it will be created only when you build it. Okay, so we build the time period after creating it from here. Build time period calendar. Okay, so this is how we do it. So we define time period, right? The next one is TRC. Okay, so before going further, I forgot to tell you that in this whole setup, okay, there are kind of main three branches. One which is for work group, one which is for task group, and one which is for TCT group. Okay, so currently we are understanding this branch. Then we'll understand this branch, and then this. Okay. So the next one is TRC. Okay. So TRC is it's an element which we use in time and labor to track the reported time, to track the time, okay, for administration and compensation purpose. It is actually for tracking purpose. Okay. For example, I'll explain you that with an example. Okay, how do we use TRCs in time and labor? Okay, so let's say we define a TRC for a regular reporting regular time. We define another TRC, this one for reporting paid leave, right? We have another TRC, this one for reporting overtime. Okay, now there can be various cases, right? Let's say in a week employees working schedule is Monday to Friday with Saturday and Sunday weekly off. Monday to Friday with Saturday and Sunday weekly off, and now employee has to report time. But there is another thing in this period. Employee was on paid leave on Tuesday, and employee worked 3 hours extra on Friday. Okay. Now employee must report the paid leave against a different time reporting code, because they cannot report the paid leave against the same time code, right? Time reporting code. And similarly, they have to report overtime against a different time code. They cannot make it that as a part of regular time. Okay, so when employee is reporting or submitting the time for that week, so this is how they would do it: Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday, the regular time 8 hours per day. And since on Tuesday employee was on paid leave, so they have to report 8 hours for Tuesday against the specific time reporting code which is defined for paid leave, right? And for Friday they have worked 3 hours over extra, right? So that is overtime. So they cannot make Friday 11 hours as part of their regular time reporting code, against their regular time reporting code. They have to enter only 8 hours for Friday as usual, but extra 3 hours they have to report against a specific time reporting code which is defined for that purpose, right? So this is how they would report it. Now, having the setup in this way, having the time reporting codes defined for different type of times, what we achieve here, so we can easily track different type of time entered by employee against each and every code. This way the administration becomes very simple for the system. Okay, and we can easily, when the payable time is generated for this reported time, then since we map each and every TRC with the corresponding payroll earning, so it becomes easy for us to report each type of time against the corresponding earning. So that will come later actually, but for now I hope you understood this. Why do we create time reporting code? And time reporting code is not it's not aligned with the project. It is not the project code. Okay, don't think in that way. Time reporting code are not for projects. They are just the elements which we use to track the time entered by employees. Okay, different type of time. Okay, and similar TRCs are grouped together to form TRC program. Okay, so there is another thing here. First we will create TRCs and then we'll create TRC program. Okay, and from where we create time reporting codes, go to setup HCM, product related, of course time and labor, time reporting, and here we have various setup pages for creating time reporting code. So this is the page which we use to create individual time reporting code TRCs, and then we create TRC program which will contain similar TRCs. Okay, and this is how we do it. So basically all these individual elements, they play a specific role, when the time is being reported by employee. Okay, so when the timesheet page is loaded, each and every of these elements, they affect that timesheet page. Okay, so for example, if I go to the timesheet page from self-service, right, time reporting, report time, timesheet, so the page will be loaded, and it's the structure of the page will be based on how we have set up these elements. Okay, for example, the work schedule. So depending upon the work schedule that we have selected, the layout of or the structure of this area will be defined. Okay, so if we have selected for this employee, the work schedule is, let's say, Monday to Friday 8 hours, or Monday to Friday with Saturday Sunday off, or if it is a weekly schedule, then this is how it will be displayed. Okay, so if the work schedule is like that, okay, and work schedule actually works in conjunction with the time period that we define. Okay, so if the time period for employee is weekly, then this is how it will be displayed. Okay, that the page will have the number of days based on that period only. If the time period that is added for this employee is, let's say, it's a daily, then this grid will change. Okay, this grid will change. If it's let's say monthly, then again this grid will change. It will all the days of that month will be available, okay, to enter. All right, so each and every area in this page is actually it comes from the setup. The page structure actually is defined based on how we have set up those elements. Okay, so this is here this is the time reporting code that we were talking about. Okay, so we saw an example where an employee reports time for a week where he was on paid leave for 1 day and worked overtime on Friday. So this is how they will report time. So when they report time over here, so they will select the time reporting code for regular time, and then for paid leave, and then for the overtime. Okay, so moving on to the next setup element, which is compensation time of plan. Okay, what is compensation time of plan? Compensatory time of plan, they are used to administer compensatory time for employees. Okay, as it is written, system maintains each instance of a time reporter's earned compensatory time and the quantity and date earned. What is compensatory time? In general, what is that? So I'll explain that with an example. Let's say employee works on a public holiday. Okay, so employee is not supposed to work, right? But even then, employee works on that day. So they are eligible for 1 day of compensatory leave. Okay, so they have earned 8 hours with that day's time. Okay, because other employees will not report anything for that day, but this employee will report 8 hours for that public holiday. So since it means he's working for that day, right? So the number of hours that he reports, it will be added in his compensation earning. It means that later on he can take a day off on any working day because he has earned a day by working in a public holiday. So they can utilize that 1 day of compensatory time for taking day off and on any working day. So this is how the compensatory works. So as and when employees work on any public holiday or any weekly off, they keep on earning the time. They keep on earning the compensatory hours. Okay. So so there is another example which is shown here. Okay. Employee works on 2 holidays, public holidays falling in a time period and on Saturday. So when they report time for that period, this is how they would do. So let's say there is another example here. Employee works on 2 public holidays, Thursday and Friday, and on Saturday as well. But as per the business process, they have to report their regular hours against the regular time reporting code, their holiday hours against the corresponding compensatory time reporting code, and their weekend hours against the corresponding compensation time reporting code. So these both are comp time reporting codes. Okay, you cannot report this time against their regular time. Okay, they have to report them against the corresponding time reporting code which are created for compensatory time plan. Okay, so as when they submit this time, so system will automatically store the system will automatically add 24 hours of earning in their compensation time earning. Okay, so it means that they now have 3 more days of paid time balance, or they have earned 3 more days of leave by working on those 3 days, right? So they can utilize these 3 days of uh, leave on as just like their regular paid leaves, right? Since employee isn't supposed to work on, so this is what it is written. Okay, so now employee can avail these earned hours just as paid leaves. So let's say employees after 1 month employee wants to go on 2 weeks of paid leave. Okay, so they can use these 3 days along with their usual paid leave balance. Okay, so this is the benefit of having the compensatory time plan management in the organization. So this is actually beneficial for employees. Okay, so to administer this whole thing, we have this compensatory time plan in PeopleSoft Time and Labor, which is very good actually, right? So, and for that we define comp time off plans, and comp time off plan is actually mapped with the corresponding time reporting code. So we have to define valid time reporting code which are specifically dedicated for tracking the compensatory time off plan, compensatory time. Okay, because when we define comp time off plan in the setup page, we have to mention valid time reporting codes. That's why this element is actually related to. So this TRC has to be first defined for comp time off plans, and then when we define compensatory time plan, so in the setup we have to mention the valid time reporting codes. That's why this arrow is going here, because this is dependent on TRC. Okay. So if you go to the setup HCM product related time and labor, go to compensatory time off plan. Okay, if you open any compensatory time off plan, you see we have to mention the valid TRCs, time reporting codes available for this compensatory time off plan. Okay, that's why this arrow is here like that. Okay, so this branch is done, right? So since these individual elements, we are done with these individual elements, all of them will be mapped against, or will be mapped with the work group. Okay, so work group is just like payroll. It's just like pay group in time and labor. So in payroll we define pay group, right? And with pay group we mention all the attributes like company, work schedule, earning codes, eligible earning codes, etc., etc. So all those things are actually mentioned in pay group in payroll. Similar to that, we have work group in time and labor. So in time and labor, we mention all these 5 attributes. Okay, holiday schedule, schedule group, time period, TRC program, and compensatory time off plan. Okay, so now the work group then finally is mapped with the employees when we create their time reporting data. Okay, so it goes all the way to the top. So this is the final step in the setup. Okay, so work group is then mapped to time reporting data. So as I said, when the timesheet page is loaded for an employee, okay, I shown you how to the timesheet page, right? So as soon as an employee opens the timesheet page, what will be the structure of the page is defined by these setup elements, right? And how system comes to know that, how these setup elements are related to the employee, right? How they are connected to employee. So this is how they are connected. So they are connected to employee through work group. So work group is like linking between all these setup elements and the employee, right? So when employee opens the timesheet page, what should be the structure of the page? What should be the eligible time reporting codes for that employee? What should be the eligible compensatory time off plan for the employee? What will be the work schedule? What will be the holiday schedule? Everything is loaded for that employee through the work group, right? Because in work group we map all these things, right? So if you go to work group setup page here, time and labor, rules and work group, go to work group page and open any work group, right? So we mention all these things, right? Holiday schedule, compensatory time plan, time period ID, schedule group, right? All these things are mentioned here. Rule program ID, TRC program ID, everything is mentioned. And at work group also we mention whether the approval is required at reported time level, payable time level, for overtime request. So all the approval related setup is also, or approval related attributes are also mentioned here at the work group definition level. Okay. So what is work group? Basically it's like a pay group in time and labor. Okay. So all employees in a work group share the identical compensation requirement. Okay. So they have the same reporting type, they have same holiday schedule, they have same TRC programs. All the time and labor related characteristics are same for all the employees in a particular work group. So just like we defined a pay group for different group of employees in payroll, right? All the employees falling in a single pay group, they share the same payroll related characteristics, right? You understand that? Similarly, in time and labor, all the time reporters or all the employees share the same time related characteristics in that work group. Okay. Now let's talk about this branch, task group. So work group was like, we mentioned all the organizational and time related characteristics or attributes, right? But in task group it is more like, it is more aligned with the project. Okay. So time is spent on a particular project, right? If you talk about IT companies, then the time is spent on various projects. I mean, an employee might spend time or might work for 2 different projects at the same time. If you talk about any manufacturing companies, then there also employees would spend time on, they may spend time on multiple projects at the same time, or they may spend time on a single project at one time, right? So we have to tell the system that where employee is spending time. Okay. That is, so this is different from work group. So here we are basically telling the system that where employee is spending time. If employee is working 40 hours a week, then where that time is being spent. So for that we create the task group. So it's aligned with it's similar to projects in organizations. Okay. So for example, an employee can spend time on 2 different projects, right? So we have to define for that for that employee, or that employee must report time against 2 different projects. So for that employee there will be 2 task groups, right? So my point here is this is aligned, or this is this is more or less a project in time and labor. Okay. So a task group is a group of employees who have similar work or task reporting requirement. So it basically identifies the default time reporting template, task template, and task profile. We will discuss these individual elements later when we actually do the setup, when we create them. Some organizations also refer the task group as labor classes or labor rate groups. So task is basically attributes of reported time such as department, product or project that defines how or where the time was spent. So as I said, task group is actually all about where the employee is spending time, in which project or in which department they are spending time. So that is very important for time reporting, right? Time management. So if I open the timesheet page, you can see where the task group is mentioned. I mean, where you can see where the task group is selected. So if you see here, so default task group is coming, and this is actually, so a task group is always added to, is mapped with the time reporter or employees in the time reporter data page. As you can see, similar to work group, task group is also mapped to time reporter or employees in the time reporter data page. So this is where it is coming from. So for this employee, the employee which we have just opened, the default task group is this one, right? It means that if employee is reporting time here, let's say 40 hours, then that 40 hours is spent on this task group or in this task or in this department or in this project, right? This is how what it means. Okay. So before creating task group, we have to create task file and task template. We'll discuss these things later. So I just wanted to explain this branch here. Okay. The last one is TCD group. Now, as I said, TCD is the element which we use to record the clocked time. I mean, the time which has come through interface. So I already explained that. So time reporting can be done on 3 ways, right? Time clock, online or phone, which is called manual also. So one of them is time clock, and to actually report time which is tracked in time clock, the time has to be sent to PeopleSoft Time and Labor through interface, right? And once it comes to PeopleSoft Time and Labor through interface, time clock devices are used to read that time and then finally send to time admin process. So TCDs are defined in PeopleSoft Time and Labor, which is actually used to read that time which has come through interface. Okay, and this entire setup is done. First TCDs, individual TCDs will be defined, then TCD setup. All these things are defined, and finally TCD group is created. And TCD group is actually added in the time reporter data. Okay. So now why it is in separate branch? Because it is not dependent on, see what we do, let's say there is a third party tool where employees swipe in and swipe out their time, right? So now that third party tool, they have their own application to read the time and calculate the duration, right? But we need to send organizational data pertaining to time administration from PeopleSoft to that third party tool, so that they can send us back the time duration against each and every employee, right? So we send the setup data from PeopleSoft to that TCD application, our third party application, and once they have the updated setup information for each and every employee, they send the duration back to us for each and every employee. They send the time duration which is recorded in the time clock devices. So they send the duration against each and every employee along with the other setup data. Okay, so this is how it works. So if you read out in this Word document, it is used to collect and report the time that is recorded through third-party time clock tool. TCD interface provides packaged integration point. So PeopleSoft has delivered TCD interface. Okay, so this interface is used to send the setup data from PeopleSoft to that third-party application, and it has inbound interface to read not inbound interface. It has through integration broker actually the time which has come from the through the interface, it is read and it is recorded in PeopleSoft TCD elements. Okay, so this is what it says actually. Now all these three main components are added in time reporting data. So now these three components are directly mapped with the employee. So each and every employee in PeopleSoft Time and Labor should have their time reporter data defined in order for them to be able to be part of the PeopleSoft Time Labor process. Okay. So they cannot raise absence, or their time cannot be processed until and unless we have not created the time reporter data for them. So we have to create time reporter data for each and every employee. It's like job data in HR. So in HR, we create job data for each and every employee, right? In job data, we mention job code, position, department, location, salary, admin plan, compensation, all those. I mean, job data is a repository of all the organizational related details for an employee. Similar to that, in PeopleSoft Time and Labor, we have time reporter data, and PeopleSoft time reporter data is a repository for all the time related information for an employee, and we must create time reporter data for each and every employee so that we can further so that employee can be part of PeopleSoft time administration process. Otherwise they cannot do anything. We cannot do anything for that employee, right? So we have to create we have to go to enroll time reporter, and we have to actually create time reporting data for each and every employee. So if I just open any employee here, for example, I just open this one. So as you can see here, we have to mention all these details: work group, task group, TCD group, right? Time period ID, all these things we have to mention. Payable time start date. So we have to enter a date here, and that will be effective date for that time reporter to be active in the time and labor system. Okay. So this is for creating new time reporter data for an employee. But if you want to see the existing time reporter data for an employee, so we have to go to maintain time reporter data page. Okay. So I'll just open this employee. So here we already have defined the time reporter data for this employee. As you can see, so all these major components, work group, task group, TCD group, they have been added for this employee. Work group, task group, TCD group, time period ID, right? So it has been added in this employee's time reporter data. Okay. So we will understand this page in detail. I just want to show that to you for now, so that you understand this whole architecture. Okay. So I hope now it is clear. So there are three major parts in the setup. The first one is this branch, the second one is this branch, and the third one is this branch. And all these three branches, they are then mapped to time reporter data for each and every employee. Okay. Well, this is not the complete setup. We have the security aspect also in time and labor. Okay. So at time and labor level, there is a security which has to be configured for the time administrators, that we will be discussing when we actually go ahead with the setup. Okay. Well, actually, there is a very important thing which I forgot to include that in this diagram. And see, I slightly made a space for that missing element. The diagram was not like this before. I mean, all the elements are still intact. They have not removed any one of them, but I have just created a space for that missing element which I forgot to include in the presentation or in the diagram, and which is actually the rule. Okay, so in time and labor we create some rules, and I'll explain that what those rules are all about. But first let me add that uh, element over here. Okay, so rules rule program. Okay, so this was the missing element which I have just made available here, and I'll just add this. Done. So this was the missing element. Okay, now this architecture is this diagram is complete actually. So now what is rule program? So it still is mapped with the work group. So if you see the work group setup page here, I have opened the work group setup page. Okay, and here you see we mentioned something called rule program ID. I explained all other things, but this was missing, which is also mapped with the work group. So now I, explain what are the rules when I was explaining the difference between the reported time and payable time. So I explained that in brief, but I didn't go in details. Okay. So now let's understand it in a little bit more details. So I took two examples in that when I was explaining the difference between reported time and payable time. I took two examples. One, that let's say an employee is working overtime, okay, and company policy says that I'll just open this here. Yeah, employee works overtime for Friday, okay, and company policy says that this overtime should be reported against a separate TRC, which is defined specifically for that. But let's say that by mistake employee doesn't report this overtime as part of as against this specific TRC. They just enter 11 here, and that's it. They submit it. So company policy, as per company policy, this is not permittable. And employee does that and submits the time. And let's say there is the approving manager also approves that without thoroughly checking it. Then what will happen? Is that correct time reporting? No, it is not. So there has to be a way where system can fix this kind of human mistakes. So that's where these rules come in picture. So we create a rule to validate the time entered by employee. Okay. So when the time is picked by the time admin process to time administration process for processing, so all these validations are done, and these validations are done entirely based on the rules that we create. So we can create a rule where even if employee submits an overtime as part of the regular time, system automatically separates the overtime hours and add them against the specific time reporting code. So this can be one rule. Another rule what could be like if let's say employee is on paid leave on Tuesday, okay, and when the report time, let's say that employee forgot to uh, report paid leave in the timesheet. They just entered 8 hours against the regular time code. Is that true? Because the employee was on paid leave for that day, but he didn't remember that he was on paid leave and enters the total 8 hours against the regular time code. He didn't enter 8 hours against the paid leave time reporting code. Then what will happen? Is that correct? No. So we can create another rule where if employee is already on a paid leave on a particular day, and if they enter hours for that day, then that must be validated, checked, and it should be separated from the regular hours, and the hour must be reported against the corresponding paid leave time reporting code. So this can be another rule. So like this, we create various rules in PeopleSoft Time and Labor to validate such entries. Okay, so that's why we have rules in PeopleSoft Time and Labor. So we first create rules, and then we group together all the similar rules, and that is called the rule program, and rule program is then mapped with the work group. So this is what is the use of rules in PeopleSoft Time and Labor. So this was missing in my previous diagram, so I just have included that, and I forgot to cover that in the when I was explaining this branch of setup. So now I have explained it, so I hope it is clear now.